All right, now guys, today we're gonna hop into the review of First Peter, this chapter 2. First things first, let me make sure you like the video, hit a like, exit full screen, scroll just a little bit, like it, full screen back up. You feel me? So we left off, I believe, in verse 4, right? So to whom, as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious, right? So we get to the point now where he's talking about Jesus. So what we came on was chapter 1. We're talking to a suffering people, right? Whole letter is talking to suffering people, but the gospel and how we live it out. Chapter 2 so far, we've seen we lay aside these things, but not like by our own will, but because we just saw in a previous chapter how to be, what is the gospel and how to live it out, right? So then he says, the newborn babies desire this milk of the word that you may grow thereby, to be able to do these things, because we tasted that the Lord is gracious. So then he's saying, to whom concerning, so we're talking about the Lord now, to whom concern, or my bad, to whom coming, which is the Lord, as unto a living stone, like or as represents a simile, right? So as unto a living stone, disallowed indeed of men, but chosen of God and precious, right? So there's two things he's talking about here. It's Psalm, I think it's 118 or 114, and Isaiah 28, right? So living stone, or the stone that the builders rejected, right? If you've seen the Boondocks, the stone that the builders refused. Anyway, so Isaiah, we see, I believe in verse 18, your covenant with death has been disannulled and your agreement shall not stand. My bad, I started in the wrong spot. 16, therefore, thus says the Lord God, behold, I lay in Zion a foundation, a stone, a tried stone, a precious cornerstone, a sure foundation. He that believes shall not make haste. Judgment I will also lay to the lion, and righteous shall plummet, and the hail shall sweep away the refuge of lies, and the water shall overflow the hiding place. I don't think 17 had anything to do with that, right? But he's saying, behold, I lay in Zion a foundation, a stone, right? And what did he call Peter? He called Peter the rock, for on this he builds a church, right? So back then, a stone or a rock or a really big, like jutting out of a stone of some sort was made to be a foundation, right? So nowadays we have a foundation of a house, but back then it was stones, specifically a cornerstone, right? A precious cornerstone was how we look at a foundation for a house, because you need it on something that's sturdy. You're not going to build your house on sand because the sand won't sustain itself, but a big rock can sustain a house. So that's where you'd want to build upon, right? So we just talked about what is the gospel and how do we live through it, and to desire all this so that we may grow in it. So to whom this living stone, so to whom coming this living stone that's not chosen by men, but chosen of God and precious, aka he's talking about Jesus, right? This is our firm foundation. If you know worship songs, you know that sound. I do rock with that song. I don't like a lot of worship like contemporary junk, but I do like that one. But a point being, just like we build our houses on a firm foundation so they don't fall, Jesus is our firm foundation in our faith. It first starts with Jesus, and from that, everything expands, right? And if you're built on a shaky Jesus, your faith is in question, Pastor Paul says. Because if you don't have Jesus, the rest of your faith is going to be muddied by whatever that fake thing has going for it, right? So it may not be Jesus, and then you're not on a rock. You're on what you think is a rock, but maybe it's hollow. It's fake. You got Jesus, but the wrong version of Jesus. Your rock is, maybe it's crumbly inside. I don't know. Something could happen to that rock. But you have the right Jesus. It's the right foundation to build a strong faith presence upon. So he's saying, this is that. And it talks of Psalm 114, where when Israel went out of, no, is it? I think it's 118. Yeah, it's 118. I don't know why it was on 114. The stone which the builders refuse is become the headstone of the corner, right? So, and then Pastor Paul talked about just the historical context of what stones were, specifically quarry stones, right? So back then they had to get their stones out of quarries, which meant a lot of hammering, a lot of chiseling, and he said nowadays, back when they was trying to do the tunnels and the stuff for the railroads, it involved dynamite, a lot of dynamite. That's what made it extremely dangerous, especially for Chinese immigrants. I remember from my U.S. history class. Look at that, and we remember some things, but it's a lot of work to get these stones, right? So there's people in there, and before they even start the foundation for a house, they have to start with this cornerstone, because this is what's going to join two walls to the house. So they can't just start anywhere. The stone that they start with has to be special. So they have to fasten it in a way that every other stone is building off of that one stone. You don't get anywhere without that first stone. That one and only stone allows the rest of the house to be built upon it, right? So without that one good stone, there is nothing else. There is no other stone without that one stone. And it says, well, actually, back to the recording, because we talk about in here, right? Ye as lively stones. So we're called stones, right? We are these stones that are built upon this first stone. We come from this first stone. We are made to fit in with this first stone, right? And he's saying a lot of the hammering and the chiseling, a lot of it was done to one man. But there's hammering and chiseling that may be done in our lives to fit us into this stone. So he's saying if you were going through something, right? So this is some stuff that they would have been very well accustomed to in this culture, is knowing how this stuff works, right? But firstly, this cornerstone doesn't just spawn in beautifully, right? It gets made perfectly. And then from that perfect stone, you got the rest of the stones that come along. And I'm not saying they're not perfect either, right? They have to fit off of that one. But in order to fit off that one, we're just stones, right? We are stones. But to fit off of that first stone, we have to be hammered and chiseled in a way that we can fit it, right? And it's not fitting that stone into us the way we want it to be fit into us. It's how we get fit into that one. So we say Christians don't be wary of that hammering and chiseling, right? We're even told as gold, our old stuff will be burnt away. Our discrepancies, our dirt will be burnt away. But just like a stone, we're going to go through some hammering and chiseling, and we'll get into more next time. All right, it's going to be the end of the video. Hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Peace.